Channel 2 News at 5 and 6.
On a secret mission to Iran, negotiating the freedom of American hostages. The voice is Oliver North's.
10 hours immediately after their release, the airplane will land with the remaining missile flight.
The charge has been made that the United States has shipped weapons to Iran as ransom payment for the release of American hostages in Lebanon. Those charges are utterly false.
Before I left Washington, Bill Casey had calmly handed me a strip of 6 white triangular pills in a sealed plastic wrapper. "Take these with you," he said. "You may need them if things get bad."
A Nightline exclusive. A conversation with Oliver North. The first interview since the Iran-Contra scandal. Now reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Colonel North, welcome back. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight, but we need to begin with some of the reaction generated by Oliver North's appearance on this broadcast last night. Colonel North has expressed his conviction that President Reagan knew everything about the Iran-Contra affair. To support that allegation, he cites several pieces of circumstantial evidence. A quote from CIA Director William Casey, his last words to a relative. "He'll never get away with it," Casey is alleged to have said. You said you thought that Casey was probably talking about Ronald Reagan and Iran-Contra. We received a call today from Mr. Casey's widow, Sophia. She described Colonel North's conjecture as a fantasy and a lie. We played an audio tape for you last night on which 2 unidentified male voices talk about Reagan and a smoking gun in the closet. You suggested that one of the voices might have belonged to Ed Hickey, who was director of the White House Military Office and an assistant to President Reagan. Ed Hickey is also dead, but his widow sent a letter to me today saying that she and several of her sons who listened to the tape are convinced that none of the voices was that of her late husband. Colonel North also told me last night that he and his lawyer, Brendan Sullivan, had been contacted by 3 men, each of whom had urged North to give up his Fifth Amendment rights and clear President Reagan's name. I've spoken with all 3, H. Ross Perot, Paul Laxalt, and retired Lieutenant Colonel Terry Matke, a former military aide to then Vice President Bush. All 3 deny the allegation. We'll get Colonel North's reaction shortly. First, though, this report from Nightline correspondent Jeff Greenfield.
The hearing will please come to order.
More than 4 years after Marine Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North held the fate of a president and the attention of the nation in his hands, he has spoken again, and old ghosts are stirring.
I believe when you look at all of this, that there's ample evidence to me to convince me that the president knew everything.
Why is this assertion drawing national attention? Not because of any hard proof, but because of how different history would have been had it been shown that Ronald Reagan knew that funds from the arms sales to Iran were being diverted to help the Nicaraguan Contras. Arthur Lyman was counsel to the Senate members of the Iran-Contra Committee.
If the case had been made on the diversion, then the president would have been impeached. Similarly, if the case had been made that the president had directed the cover-up, which Oliver North testified about at length, as did other witnesses, the president would have been impeached.
The only hint of evidence offered by North is a mysterious tape, allegedly capturing a conversation accidentally recorded during a routinely taped phone call between 2 Citibank employees.
And there's a smoking gun in the closet.
What?
Reagan knows.
Today, Lyman politely but pointedly regretted that independent counsel Lawrence Walsh had not brought that tape to the committee's attention.
It seems to me that the independent counsel should have been able to identify the participants if the tape is not a hoax, and that I would have liked to have known.
Other assertions of North's were firmly denied. North says that billionaire H. Ross Perot came to his lawyers in late 1986 as a White House emissary with a message to exonerate President Reagan and an offer of financial help.
I told him in the meeting that I felt that a man who was prepared to die for his country should be prepared to tell the truth for his country, and that it looked terrible for a Naval Academy graduate to take the Fifth Amendment, and if they would simply tell the truth, put all the facts on the table, and get this over with in a few days, I would pay his legal bills, take care of his family if he went to jail, and help him get started when he got out.
The only persons in the United States government that knew precisely about this, the only person was Lieutenant Colonel North. The President knew nothing about it until I reported it to him. I alerted him yesterday.
From former Attorney General Ed Meese, who first revealed the story of the diversion, came this response.
I think as far as history is concerned, people are going to go back to look at what are the identifiable facts, what has been proved, what hasn't been proved, and on that basis, I think the facts, as we discovered them that weekend and as they were later borne out by the committee, that Ronald Reagan did have nothing to do with, nor did he know of, the diversion of funds. I think that is what history will show.
For Reagan opponents, the book shows that the effort to evade the law was an administration-wide policy.
And when you have dozens of high officials running around raising money for the Contras from third countries and going along with arms deals with the Ayatollah, no wonder North felt like he was authorized and that the president would have gone along with it.
For Reagan loyalists, like Congressman Henry Hyde, North's assertions raise a dilemma. During the Iran-Contra hearings, championing Oliver North was a way of defending the beleaguered President Reagan.
Thank you.
Now that North has accused Reagan of concealing his knowledge and of abandoning his troops, where does Congressman Hyde come down? Squarely in the middle.
I'm just unwilling to believe the president would willfully lie to the American people. I don't think he did. Oliver North has a different perspective, and as I say, one that I can be very sympathetic with. But as both a North supporter and a Reagan supporter, I still support both without reaching the conclusions that Ollie reaches in his book.
And how will history remember North? Ben Bradley Jr. was Oliver North's biographer.
History will not judge him very kindly. I think that he'll be remembered as the person who symbolized and in fact championed an extra-legal foreign policy, flouted the law of the land, pursuing what he and others believe to be in the national interest.
What makes Oliver North's book so significant is the mindset of the author. Most attacks on President Reagan come from those who never shared his worldview or his political premises. But these assertions, that Reagan concealed the truth of what he knew in order to save himself, come not from the liberal left, but from one of the most loyal foot soldiers in the Reagan Revolution. I'm Jeff Greenfield for Nightline.
And Colonel North will have a chance to respond to some of those responses when we come back live in just a moment.
This Nightline exclusive is brought to you by Infinity.
It took time and hard work. No one had ever done it before. The technology that combined front-wheel drive and multi-link suspension simply didn't exist. 5 years later, there is the Infinity G20 midsize luxury sedan. And the chance to discover what's already been called one of the best handling cars in the world is right around the corner.
All across America, people are throwing in the towel. The scrub brush, the rubber gloves, and refusing to wash all their dishes before they wash their dishes. They're turning off their faucets and turning on the Maytag Jet Clean dishwasher that scrubs with 47 powerful jets, filters, then disposes. It's made to get dishes clean, no strings attached. Or a repairman. The Jet Clean dishwasher from Maytag, the dependability people.
Chemical dependency? Call the Alcohol and Drug Crisis Line. Family problems? Codependency? We're ready to help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Relapse? Work-related problems? Call 373-8700 for a free confidential consultation with a qualified mental health professional. Help for alcohol and drug dependency, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call now.
I'll have an answer for you by 1:30.
In today's fast-moving banking business, we know there's a new world of things that count.
Sisters, we helped finance your grandfather's first expansion.
We've never forgotten that.
About half the size of this.
Human anatomy, I know, but loan applications?
You did just fine. Sign right here.
Another outstanding year managing my investments.
Mr. Haynes, I think you're going to like this.
Today, you have new needs. And Third National Bank has a new commitment to what counts.
The largest Medicare health maintenance plan in America may be cutting costs by cutting care.
I don't trust them at all.
Primetime investigates Thursday.
And we are back live with Colonel Oliver North. Pick up with Sophia Casey. She says fantasy, lie. In fact, what she said to us was that for the last 2 months of his life, her husband, Bill Casey, was paralyzed from head to toe, couldn't even talk.
As I indicated in the book, Ted, that was information passed to me by a relative at the wake. She didn't say it happened the last day or the last week or the last month. She said that those were among the last words that Bill Casey had said to her.
In the last days of his life, you write in the book.
And indeed, I have no reason to disbelieve that. What you've done is you've assembled, it seems to me, a fair collection of the same cast of characters that wanted indeed to cast this guy over the side.
This guy being you?
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, Ted, in those last days and in the immediate days following my departure from the White House, there was no effort to have me tell the truth. None of those people that came to me, none of this correspondence that was delivered to my lawyer says anything about the truth. It says exonerate the president. In fact, the exact words are, President Reagan had no prior knowledge of the operative facts, transactions, and occurrences relating to what
are you reading from?
I am reading from a letter sent to my attorneys by Senator Laxalt, urging that I go out, waive my Fifth Amendment protections that my attorneys had said I needed to avail myself of. Ross Perot did not urge me to tell the truth.
Let me ask you to stay on Senator Laxalt for a moment, because I spoke with him this afternoon, and I must say, of all the responses that I've gotten, his was the weakest, because he didn't remember who asked him to deliver that legal memorandum, as he described it. Would you also consider, I mean, that's really a memorandum that advises you that if you were to exonerate the president, you would not be voiding your own Fifth Amendment rights. Right?
Among other things, it suggests the language that might be used not only by me, but by Admiral Poindexter. And the facts are, when Ross Perot, or when Paul Laxalt, or a military aide came, the entire quest was exonerate the president, waive your Fifth Amendment protections, and go out and make this kind of a statement that says that the president had no prior knowledge, etc. Ross Perot did not talk about the truth. He did not come, as I said last night, as the roving ambassador of the truth. He came to get me to exonerate the president. He never offered to pay my legal bills, and if he's disputing that, he's not just disputing my word, he's disputing the word of Brendan Sullivan, and if he wants to bite off a piece of that potted plant, let him chew all he wants. The fact of the matter is that what happened to me, okay, in those last days, and as I moved on toward that hearing, were very clearly efforts, as I perceive them, by an administration that had made a great effort to distance itself from anything that I had done.
You have never called it a cover-up, but it sounds as though that's what you're describing.
Well, what the actual effect of all of that is to deny things that had been going on since 1984.
Is that a cover-up?
I'm going to let you use the words.
No, I'm just asking you, and I'm asking you whether you find anything offensive about that word, or whether you would accept it as an accurate description.
I don't accept a lot of what has been said in the last 24 hours as an accurate description at all. I hear the words accused the president. I hear the words flouted the law, extra legal, attacks on the president in the warm-up that got us to this point right here, and none of that is the essence of this book. This book is my experience of 5.5 years in that administration, in extraordinary events, serving a president that literally changed the world for the better. Yeah, and there's a lot. No, let me. Ted, you cut me off last night on that. Let me finish.
Colonel North, you didn't just fall off the turnip truck either. You knew that when you wrote that in that book, that would be the lead of every story that was going to be written about.
Wrong.
That was going to. You didn't know that?
Ted, wrong. The lead that was picked up by the various magazines, right there, the lead that was picked up
by the newspapers.
By the newspapers
by
is
television?
Their decision and yours and the like to choose what it is you want to focus on. One line out of a 446-page book.
What would you have picked as the lead of that book? I'm asking you. You've had some experience with the media now. You know what a lead is. What's the headline of that book, if not that?
I would have thought maybe something about the ability to persevere in adversity. I would have thought that there's all kinds of things about, why not pick the lead about how Ronald Reagan changed the world, which is in the book.
Well, maybe that's why you were in the Marine Corps and I chose journalism. Let me ask you something about the charge you made last night, and I forget the precise words, but it was that you were, in a sense, almost savaged by some people at the White House, that they not only cut you off, cut you adrift. What was the phrase you used last night? Do you remember?
If you could refresh my recollection, Senator, I'm sure I'd have it. But
I can't. Who do you think was behind that, though? I mean, however you want to categorize it, however.
I really don't know. I would like to know. I think that there were a lot of people at various levels in the various competing hierarchies of the White House who had a hand in that. Clearly, that's not something that Ronald Reagan personally orchestrated. I have my suspicions. I believe it could well have come from the Chief of Staff's office, a number of the people in there.
John Reagan at that time?
Well, his office. I mean, I was told by former colleagues at the White House that these were the people that were putting out the word that North was not to be trusted, that North was off on his own, that this was a wild man, a renegade operating from the basement of the White House.
What about
You heard
Mrs.
those
Reagan?
stories. I have no reason to know that it was Mrs. Reagan.
No, I'm not asking you what you know. There's no way you should know it or could know it, but what does your nose tell you on that one?
I'm sure that Mrs. Reagan, based on the things that she said publicly that I saw, read, and heard, felt grievously offended by the way my actions were portrayed throughout that period of time, up through the hearings.
You think this notion of using the diversion as a diversion, which is something you have also charged in your book, that's the kind of thing that Nancy Reagan might have approved of?
I'm not saying it was Nancy Reagan. I'm thinking, what I said is I think it was a very convenient distraction to use the diversion as the focal point for all of what transpired between November of 1986 and the end of the hearings in 87.
All right, Colonel North, we're going to take a break. When we come back, that famous first trip to Tehran, and what I promise you are some fascinating background stories of what happened on that trip in a moment.
Where do you want to be in 20 years?
Well, my father worked for the same company for 39 years. He got 2 weeks vacation, but we never traveled far. He was saving to put 3 kids through college. At 65, he retired. At 67, he died. How can I invest so that after my kids graduate, I can enjoy the second half of my life?
You can get there from here with Shearson Lehman Brothers.
The white zone is for immediate.
We didn't design the new Mazda MX-3 to be like apple pie. Jalapenos were what we had in mind. Because if something's not worth having an opinion about it, it's not worth having. And with the only V6 in its class, the MX-3 is one hot chili pepper. Hey, you're not John Doe. Why drive his car? The new MX-3 from the new Mazda.
It just feels right!
High school football is here, and that means it's time for Channel 2's Food to Families Football Challenge. Each week, 2 special schools compete by collecting cans of food to help feed needy families. Channel 2's Can Man will be there to announce the winner at every game. So, Can Man, who's in this week's challenge?
It's between Franklin High School and Brentwood High School. This Friday, Ann.
So support these schools as they collect cans of food for Second Harvest Food Bank. And remember, in this challenge, everyone's a winner.
Furniture, when it's got to be good. When it's got to be wood. It's got to be Naked Furniture. Our specialty is fine wood furniture for the way you live, for the way you work. Furniture just for you, custom finished by us. And with all this quality, all this style, we didn't have to make it affordable. But we did. Naked Furniture, real wood, affordably priced.
Save 20 to 40% on all dining rooms now at Naked Furniture on Nolensville Road.
Purity Half Plus AB. No wonder it's become one of the fastest-selling low-fat milks in the dairy case. It's on target in every way. Real milk flavor, guaranteed delicious, and only 0.5% fat. Plus acidophilus and bifidum cultures for digestion, and only 0.5% fat. Plus vitamins A and D, plus calcium. Plus it's only 0.5% fat. So if you know what's good for you, you'll get Purity Half Plus AB before it all runs out.
They say they'll get you a loan. No credit needed, no questions asked. So why won't they talk to 2020? Is it really money for nothing?
2020 Friday.
Parents concerned about the quality of children's TV? Tomorrow, what you can do to make it better.
Also, Paul McCartney will be here on Good Morning America tomorrow.
The head of our little delegation was Bud McFarlane, my former boss. He was flying to Tehran as Ronald Reagan's personal envoy. No mission from the land of the great Satan could be expected to be greeted with flowers, which is why we were traveling under phony names and false passports, courtesy of the CIA.
Now, speaking of the CIA, I know you weren't looking at the picture, but you know the picture well. A couple of faces are boxed out there. You had members of the CIA along on the trip with you.
We did.
When you arrived, you had every expectation that you would be met, if not by a high-ranking delegation, at least by a mid-level delegation. What actually happened when you got there?
Well, we weren't met at all. In fact, we had been led to believe that we were going to meet, probably not at the airport, but shortly after we arrived with then Speaker of the Parliament, or the Majlis, Hashemi Rafsanjani. And we'd been told that by Monitor Ghorbanifar. In point of fact, we waited...
Now, Ghorbanifar was the arms dealer who acted as sort of an intermediary.
The initial intermediary, the one provided to us by the Israeli
So
government.
when you got there and there was no one there to meet you...
We waited.
How long?
Oh, it was a protracted period of time, and it was very hot. The reception center had been stripped, essentially. Eventually, after a phone call, Ghorbanifar and a delegation arrived in a dilapidated convoy of what appeared to be used cars, and delivered us forthwith to the former Tehran Hilton.
I've got to pick up on a couple of things that have been mentioned in the past, but one that we heard at the top of this broadcast. So Bill Casey, before you left, hands you this little package with, what, poison pills?
I thankfully never had to open them, but I took that to be what indeed they were for.
You must have had some times over the last 5 years when you, when you considered that package.
No, I have, in point of fact, I don't know what would have happened if it had all gone the wrong way, whether I would have been able to do that or not.
But it was that uncertain a mission when you went over to Tehran.
It was. There was no doubt great concern that this group would be acknowledged, get back, not make it all the way. The uncertainty was what added to the danger of it.
Now, I want to pick up on a few of what are really trivialities, but they're sort of fun trivialities because so much attention was focused on them when it first came out at the time. There was the story of the Bible. There was the story of the pistols. And, of course, there was the story of the famous chocolate cake in the shape of a key.
Yeah.
You want to clarify that?
Well,
pick up with the chocolate cake.
The chocolate cake was actually a gift that Ghorbanifar wanted to give to his mother. He had asked Nir and I to provide, get the cake.
Amram, the Israeli who was traveling as a member of the U.S.
delegation. And Nir and I had gone to a kosher delicatessen in Tel Aviv, picked up the cake that Ami had ordered, and we put it on the airplane with us.
Key-shaped cake?
No, just a plain rectangular cake about the size of my notebook here. It was in a box. I put it in the sink of the galley of the aircraft. Above the galley, in the cabinets above, I had placed the 3 boxes of pistols that we had gotten. Each pistol box had in it a key, and the key was inserted in the little decorative lock. When I opened the cabinet to get some coffee cups out for coffee en route, one of the keys vibrated loose, landed in the middle of the cake where the top of the box was up off it, and lodged itself in the cake in such a way that it really messed up the decorative icing. I took the key, laid it flat down in the cake, and joked with, I believe, George Cave, that this would be taken as the key to open up her heart to us for Mrs. Ghorbanifar. That whole story got somehow convoluted over, as so many others did, that it was a key-shaped cake that the United States had brought as a gift to, I guess, the Ayatollah.
What ultimately happened to the cake?
The cake, according to what I saw, the cake was eaten by the Revolutionary Guards who were protecting us.
Guarding you?
And keeping us while we were there.
In the minute or so that we have left in this segment, sort of wrap up for us then. What actually, I mean, at flank speed here, what actually happened then during those negotiations? Certainly in listening to the tapes, it sounded as though it was arms for hostages. I mean, whatever the lead up to it was.
Well, there is no doubt, Ted, and I don't think anybody who is involved in this could say otherwise, that what this whole initiative began as a truly straightforward effort to open a new entree to Iran became arms for hostages. And certainly by the time we were in Tehran in May of 1986, it became a straight barter arrangement as to how many of what would be exchanged for how many living hostages.
It was, of course, that mission ended up being a total failure and you had to leave. But you seem to feel that if only a little more patience had been shown, maybe a few more hours even, you would have gotten a couple of hostages out.
I believed that then, and I believe it today. I think if we had been more patient, if we had contacted Washington for the permission that would have been required to accept less than all of the hostages, that we could have brought at least 2 of them home.
And why didn't you wait?
Bud's instructions were that it was all or nothing. And
Bud McFarlane?
Yes.
He was the leader of the delegation?
He was the head of the delegation.
And he wasn't willing to call back home?
No, he was not.
Because?
You'd have to ask Bud why. He very clearly said to me and to Howard Teicher and to everyone else that his instructions were all or nothing.
All of the attention on overseas missions that you've made have focused either on Iran or the Contras, but there was a mission that you had in which you went to London to meet with Manuel Noriega. I'd like you just to take a pause right now, take a deep breath. When we come back, we'll talk about that mission, the Noriega mission, in a moment.
This Nightline exclusive will continue after these messages.
If you don't have AT&T 800 service and trouble hits, who knows how long you could be out? Only AT&T automatically protects you through the 800 assurance policy. With AT&T, you would be guaranteed back in touch in 30 minutes or less. With anyone else? Who knows? But if you do have AT&T, your 800 service is guaranteed. That's not all. Since AT&T connects calls faster and has the fewest blocked calls, more 800 calls get through. So you can make more sales. With all that, why choose any other 800 service? Better service, better results. Another AT&T advantage. Call about our 800 offer.
Well, here it is, gentlemen. Top of the world. Now, I put my camera here. Your vehicle would face out over the cliffs. What do you think? Look, if you plan to claim your vehicle's as good as a Jeep, you really need this shot in your commercial.
How are we going to get our vehicle up here?
Helicopter.
We'll lift it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Great. Let's go down and make some calls.
Yeah, same thing. It's going to be a great commercial.
I'm alive. Howard Weber.
Alive. Jessica Weber.
For a free list of cars with airbags, see your Allstate agent.
There's one battery that backs you with free jumpstart service anywhere, for any reason. Die Hard.
Can't believe I left my lights on.
Sears Die Hard. More power when you need it most.
Who's gonna back you better than Sears?
Chemical dependency? Call the Alcohol and Drug Crisis Line. Family problems? Codependency? We're ready to help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Relapse? Work-related problems? Call 373-8700 for a free confidential consultation with a qualified mental health professional. Help for alcohol and drug dependency, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call now.
In 1986, you went to London, you and Dick Secord, to meet with Manuel Noriega at his request.
We did, Ted. And that's a matter of record that that meeting took place. Unfortunately, I have to tell you that I have now been subpoenaed for the trial of Manuel Noriega, and we're not going to be able to talk much further about that particular meeting.
All right, now, and I'm the first to state it. You and I talked about 3 weeks ago. Obviously, that was before you had been subpoenaed. There was no reason why you couldn't talk about it then. Since I told our audience that I was going to raise it with you, and quite literally during the commercial, you advised me that you had been subpoenaed and you wouldn't be able to talk about it. The story, as you told it to me then, and you may be able to nod, wink, or just sit there in stony silence, I'm not quite sure which.
You may get subpoenaed too, Ted.
I may get subpoenaed too. You told me at that time that when you met with Noriega, he made a proposal to you and Dick Secord at that time that was a bit of a wild one, namely that he was prepared to assassinate, in behalf of the United States, some of the leadership of the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. And that you and Dick Secord said to him, as gently as you could, that, you know, the United States wasn't in the assassination game anymore. However, if...
I'm not sure I used the word anymore, Ted. I want to be very clear about that.
You're right. You may not have used that, and I'm not operating from notes here. However, should General Noriega be inclined toward knocking off a few base camps or arranging for some base camps to be knocked off, that would not be taken amiss back in Washington. Is my memory essentially correct?
Well, let me just say, as a matter of policy, the administration I served in, and certainly this administration, has faithfully adhered to the prohibition against assassinations, and I was not at all reluctant to remind people of that if the occasion came up.
Right. Now, as to the second part of what I mentioned, quoting you, quoting Noriega, or rather quoting you, quoting yourselves, you and Dick Secord to Noriega, saying if, on the other hand, they wanted to knock off a few base camps, Sandinista base camps, that would not be taken amiss.
There's, if I may answer in a more general fashion, because of the outstanding subpoena, the administration went to some lengths, and I was directed to go to some lengths to find support within the region for those who would support the Nicaraguan resistance operations against the Sandinistas. That included dealings with all of the countries surrounding Nicaragua.
Including Panama. That the stony silence, right?
Well,
all right. Then it's my saying it, including Panama. You know what is so curious about the timing of that particular meeting, though, is that it took place, I think, about 10 days after the New York Times did a rather scathing piece on Noriega, accusing him of being involved in drug dealing. Now, whether or not this is something that, you know, that might come up in your subpoena, I don't know. You'll have to make that judgment. But it seems strange that a White House official would be going to meet with Noriega and engage in this kind of discussion when it has just been revealed, and I'm assuming now that maybe you didn't know, or maybe no one had told you before, that Noriega might be involved in drug dealing. Wasn't a meeting like that? I mean, wasn't the timing of that meeting kind of strange?
I don't think it makes much difference in terms of the timing. There's no doubt that there were many, many allegations about Noriega's involvement, not just in drug dealing, but in Cuban front companies and various activities that are illegal, that were wrong, and there was great concern in the administration for stopping those. I think that was fairly widespread.
Stopping them or cleaning up his image?
I think on our part, it was stopping him. And perhaps on his part, it was cleaning up his image.
Well, the reason I raise the question is here's a copy, and honest, I have trouble reading your writing, but it has been interpreted for me. This is a page from that famous diary that you kept. Can you just read for me what it says down at the bottom, Marie Noriega?
Well, first, it's not a diary, Ted. It was notes that I made pursuant to carrying out my duties. But,
okay, the date is?
24 August 86, it says. And I guess you're referring to this one down here, which says meeting with Dewey.
That's Dewey Claridge of the CIA.
Probably. Send word back to Noriega to meet in Euro or Israel. Tell Abrams that Noriega has asked for meeting. You got me, I can't read my own writing. Re-cleaning up image. At meeting with N, how to clean up image, 5 stars. And I must confess that the copy isn't clear enough to make up the rest of it.
Does it refresh your memory at all about cleaning up Noriega's image, though?
No, but I think it was fairly well known that he was anxious to do so, and that he wanted to make sure that his image was enhanced. There's no doubt about that.
Do you think his offer, however, and I understand it wasn't accepted, but his offer to assassinate leaders of the Sandinistas could be seen in his mind as kind of a quid pro quo for the United States then being willing to sort of smooth over what was clearly a messy image that he had at that time? And there is also, I think, a reference down there to some kind of weapons deliveries.
Well, you'd have to ask him what he had in his mind.
I'm really asking what you had in your mind at that time when you went to meet with him.
Well, I was authorized to go and have this meeting as I've reported it, and I'm reluctant to go much further because I'm not at all anxious to violate the advice of counsel at this point, even with you, Ted.
You got good counsel. I think that's probably good advice.
Nonetheless, I do want you to understand that when George Shultz or the administration decided that it was useful to talk to Noriega, it was in the national interest of the United States to do various things to ensure that the Panama Canal traffic was not interrupted, in an effort to hope that you'd ensure some kind of democratic transition in Panama, both of which were issues in doubt at the time.
And also the notion that, after all, those Contras did need help.
Oh, no doubt about it.
And Noriega could be helpful in that regard.
Apparently had been.
And, I mean, I'm assuming if I were Noriega's attorney, I'd probably want to subpoena you too, because the case he wants to make is, hey, I helped these guys out one hell of a lot. I was their boy.
You'd have to ask them.
Okay. We'll be back with Colonel North with more in just a moment.
You know, it's not something we talk about.
Then don't talk about it.
But when Raymond gets...
Gets what?
You know, constipated.
What?
I give him Phillips Milk of Magnesia.
Put that away.
Phillips works overnight and immediately starts soothing the stomach acid Ray sometimes gets when he's feeling...
Oh, Maureen.
Well, it's true, honey.
Only Phillips relieves constipation overnight and soothes your upset stomach.
It can happen to anybody.
But you don't even know these people.
The white zone is for immediate...
We didn't design the new Mazda MX-3 to be like apple pie. Jalapenos were what we had in mind. Because if something's not worth having an opinion about it, it's not worth having. And with the only V6 in its class, the MX-3 is one hot chili pepper. Hey, you're not John Doe. Why drive his car? The new MX-3 from the new Mazda.
It just feels right.
Hi, I'm Jerry Sutton, pastor of Two Rivers Baptist Church, and I want to give you a special invitation to join us at 9:30 on Channel 2. We live in a world where families seem to be torn apart on every hand. The moral fiber of our country seems to be disintegrating before us. And when we meet here on Sunday mornings, we talk about solutions and not just the problems. If you can't join us here in person, let me encourage you to join us on Channel 2 at 9:30 on Sunday mornings. We'd love to have you with us.
On the next Maury Povich Show, how hard would it be to change yourself into a sweet Southern belle? For some, it would take a major makeover.
First, Southern belles do not smoke on the street. Now come with me.
Well, we'll meet a woman who says she can turn any girl into a charming Southern belle.
Then, you think your kid is bad? How about the 13-year-old who bit off the cat's ear and tried to poison the family dog? Kids who are out of control on the next Maury Povich Show.
The Maury Povich Show, tomorrow at 3 on Channel 2.
When you see me with my good friends from Sesame Street, you know it's time for WKRN's Food to Families Night at Sesame Street Live. And it's coming to Municipal Auditorium October 23rd through the 27th. Opening night, bring a can of food to donate to WKRN's Food to Families campaign. Tickets are only $7 each. I'll be there along with Elmo, Grover, and Canman to take your food donation and to say thank you. We'll see you there. Right, guys?
On the one hand, George Bush says he never thought this was an arms for hostages deal, right?
Sure. Same as the president's position.
Same as the president's position.
Exactly. I'm saying it never became clear until we saw that it was arms for hostages, until Mr. Durenberger came out to my house and explained it all in excruciating detail.
Mr.
And that
Vice
was
President?
in December, a couple of months after the cover was blown on this operation.
I understand. Now, there is George Bush, and that, of course, was during the campaign in 1988. And he is saying, in effect, that he did not know the details of the arms for hostages in Tehran until Senator Durenberger, who was then, as you remember, on the Senate Intelligence Committee, came out in December of 1986. That was actually after you got canned, right?
As I remember it, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until December of 1986, Senator Durenberger came out and briefed the vice president. Is that compelling to you?
I have no reason to dispute that. There's nothing in my book that disputes that.
No. I mean, forget about your book for a moment. I'm just asking you to draw on your memory and tell me whether it is reasonable to you that the vice president, who after all in July of that year had met with your friend Amram Nir, who was the advisor on counterterrorism to the Israeli Prime Minister, George Bush had met with Amram Nir in Jerusalem in July of that year. Presumably the subject of arms to Iran had come up, wouldn't you think?
You're going to have to ask either Aminir or Vice President Bush.
Well, Aminir is dead and George Bush isn't talking.
Well, George Bush did talk, and that's not fair, Ted. What I think is happening here is that there's an effort to make me into a prosecutor, and I'm not. And let me finish this time, please. This is not a book about trashing Ronald Reagan or George Bush. It's not an attempt to in any way inculpate people who I can't definitively say they did this or they did that. I tried to provide a perspective on the events that I lived through for 5.5 years, provide a little context by describing how I got there, provide a little description of what I went through as a consequence of it. I have some fairly strong feelings both ways about Ronald Wilson Reagan. I think he changed this country dramatically. I think he was served well by then Vice President Bush, and I think that Ronald Reagan built a foundation on which the whole world has dramatically changed under President Bush's tenure. Now, this book is not about trashing that. This book is about my experience in this whole thing. And what the then Vice President said to you in that interview that you did in the campaign is fully consistent with what I have in this book. And there's nothing I can say to you tonight that's any different.
You are quite, in fact, the name George Bush barely appears in your book.
And George Bush was not in my chain of command. I mean, I reported to the National Security Advisor to the President of the United States, and he reported to the President.
But George Bush was at many of the meetings that you attended,
Certainly.
National Security Council meetings.
Absolutely.
Right?
National Security Planning Group meetings, NSC meetings, all kinds of them.
And yet, I mean, your contention has been throughout, and certainly more forcefully now than ever before, that you were not this loose cannon rolling around on the deck of the ship of state that all those other folks up there, from the president, you don't say it from the president on down, but including the president of the United States, knew about it. You're telling me you don't think the vice president knew?
What I said in that book and what I say to you this evening is I have no reason to believe that what Vice President Bush told you in that campaign interview that you did is in any way inconsistent with the facts.
What about aid to the Contras? Same thing?
Same thing.
Even though he, and you do quote this in your book, he sent you a thank you note on, what was it, Thanksgiving of 1986?
It was Thanksgiving of...
85, 86?
1985.
85. And in it, he thanks you for what?
Well, if I may, I'd read it.
Please.
As I head off to Maine for Thanksgiving, starts Dear Ollie, en route to Kennebunkport, 11/27/85. As I head off to Maine for Thanksgiving, I just want to wish you a happy one with the hope that you'll get some well-deserved rest. One of the many things I have to be thankful for is the way in which you have performed under fire in tough situations. Your dedication and tireless work with the hostage thing and with Central America really give me cause for great pride in you, and thanks. Get some turkey, George Bush.
Now, what do you think he was thanking you for?
I had gone with Vice President Bush into El Salvador in 1983. He had...
Now, this is 1985. Now, if there's one thing George Bush is known for, it is that he's an extremely courteous man who writes thank you notes right away. Doesn't usually wait 2 years.
Well, it's a little less than 2 years, but there well could have been any number of issues that caused him to send me that note. We had been intensely involved in the hostage matter. As you know, he was involved as the overall supervisor of what is defined in the book as the project, a very sensitive national security project that I was the coordinator for.
Having to do with?
Having nothing to do with either Iran or hostages.
But those are the two things that are...
But what I'm saying to you is that the predicate for him, or the preambular activity for him writing that is today unknown to me.
Okay. We've got to take another break. We'll be back with more with Ollie North in just a moment.
This Nightline exclusive will continue after these messages.
Rough, tight, dry skin? That stops with Curel. When you apply Curel regularly, you'll feel its fast-absorbing rehydration formula take over. First, it seals in the healing moisturizers. Then the soothing Curel therapy rehydrates your dry skin. First it seals, then it heals. There's a clear line between other moisturizing formulas and Curel's rehydration formula. Curel for dry skin. First it seals, then it heals.
Buying 100% Colombian coffee can be tricky if you don't know what to look for. Because some coffee is only part Colombian. And some coffee isn't any part Colombian. So how can you be sure you're getting the richest coffee in the world? Always look for Juan Valdez. He'll only be on brands that are 100% Colombian coffee. The richest coffee in the world.
Pain from just one sensitive tooth can start the domino effect. Pain can make you stop brushing, lead to plaque buildup, gingivitis, periodontal disease, even tooth loss. Sensodyne toothpaste helps stop the pain and the domino effect.
I've got a 6 a.m. flight. I've got to get some Z's.
Nitol safely helps you fall asleep fast so you can get your Z's. Nitol or maximum strength Nitol.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
I'm not a preacher in the classical sense of the term, but I can tell you how to live by faith in God's Word and how to be in victory in life. Too many people don't know how to receive from God. They don't know the reality of His power, so we're going to show them how.
Watch The Believer's Voice of Victory with Kenneth Copeland every week right here.
High school football is here, and that means it's time for Channel 2's Food to Families Football Challenge. Each week, 2 special schools compete by collecting cans of food to help feed needy families. Channel 2's Can Man will be there to announce the winner at every game. So, Can Man, who's in this week's challenge?
It's between Franklin High School and Brentwood High School this Friday, Ann.
So support these schools as they collect cans of food for Second Harvest Food Bank. And remember, in this challenge, everyone's a winner.
We were called to a meeting in Director Casey's office. Claire George, me, Chief Latin America 1, Oliver North, the director. The director looked at Ollie and said, "Ollie, Alan tells me you're operating in Central America. Is that true?" Ollie looked at the director and said, "No." The director said, "Good. I want you to understand you're not to operate in Central America."
Now, that story that Alan Fires told in before Congressional Committee there, you remember that meeting?
I have a general recollection of the meeting.
This is no trick question.
Oh, really come on, Senator.
No. This is you. What I'm asking you is, did Casey and you cook that up beforehand? I mean,
that
sure
was
sounds cooked
classic Bill Casey. Bill wanted to make real sure that his people were as protected as they could be, and that is also Bill Casey. He had great concern for his people. He knew that they were being called upon to testify. The intelligence traffic was full of Oliver North doing this and Dick Secord doing that, and he knew well what that meant, and he knew that it placed his people in jeopardy. Many of those intelligence reports ended up on Capitol Hill. They were circulated around the administration. He did his best to clean it up. He wanted us to improve our communications security. And at the same time, he wanted to make sure that his own people who had to go up there and testify frequently could go up there and say, it ain't so.
So, as Alan Fires assumed, that was a charade.
Yes.
And Casey had said to you beforehand, I'm gonna ask you, you messing around in Central America, you're gonna say no.
Here's how it's gonna go.
Here's how it's gonna go.
Yes.
You like Casey.
I had enormous admiration for Bill Casey.
He was, in effect, and I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, he was sort of the godfather of your operation in many ways. I mean, you came into this as something of an innocent. People think of you as a real, hotshot clandestine operative, but that was not your background. You were an infantry officer.
Indeed.
So how and where did Casey help you?
Oh, I guess the first step in the process was my going to him and finding out how to set up an overseas bank account for wire transfers with telex codes and the ability to accept the money that the president and Bud McFarlane had arranged for from Saudi Arabia. And that was the first step in my real operational involvement in the spring of 1984.
And whom did he send you to?
Well, he told me to go to Adolfo Calero, who was a man that we could trust, that was a man that had incredible integrity, and was a man who would honestly disperse the monies for the purposes that they were intended.
He also put you onto Dick Secord, right?
Yes, he did. That was somewhat later on when it became necessary to help them with the kinds of logistics that the CIA was pulling back from. As the CIA finances ran out and they were withdrawing, he suggested Dick Secord as a person who could fill that gap.
But really there was then sort of a passing of the baton. In other words, once Congress said, U.S. government can't do it, then it became this covert operation, which was still was it being run by William Casey, or was Ollie North running it?
Well, in fact, the Nicaraguan resistance was running it.
No, I'm talking about the American involvement.
I became the American, I suppose, counterpart, the American liaison, if you will.
Bill Casey was a little bit disgusted with you at times. Again, I don't mean that to sound nasty. It's just you were such an innocent in this thing at the beginning.
Well,
codes, open phone calls.
My lack of experience, I think, was manifest in the way I would have to go to him to find out how to do various things. He provided code books and communications equipment, and would almost in disgust would say, you don't understand anything. Here's how you do it. And he became, in many respects, the way in which I learned how to do these kinds of things. It's not part of your basic Marine infantry officer's training.
we're just about out of time. We're going to have a minute or so when we come back, but we will do that in just a moment.
This Nightline exclusive has been brought to you by Lexus.
It's not Waterford Crystal or a Hasselblad lens. It's a headlamp. And if you think that's impressive, wait till you see what's attached. Introducing the new Lexus ES 300 Sports Sedan.
There's new, longer-lasting Glade Carpet Potpourri. So now the freshness lasts even longer. Spray it, shake it, or pump it.
No potpourris like Glade.
Campbell's heard your healthy request.
Low cholesterol.
Less salt.
But lots of taste.
Here's our answer. New Campbell's Healthy Request ready-to-serve soups. All the great taste you want without some things you don't. New Campbell's Healthy Request. And healthy.
I'm alive. Howard Weber.
Alive. Jessica Weber.
For a free list of cars with airbags, see your Allstate agent.
Remember the old saying, a penny saved is a penny earned? Well, with this in mind, Channel 2 News has created Making Ends Meet, practical advice on saving, spending, and making money, from buying a house to shopping for groceries, saving for retirement to inexpensive ways families can have fun. I'm John Clark. I hope you'll join me each night on Channel 2 News at 6 for Making Ends Meet. It's another example of Channel 2 News on your side.
Times are tough, and many families are struggling to pay bills with no money left for food. Responding to needs for emergency food is what Channel 2's Food to Families campaign is all about. As a public service project of Two on Your Side, our goal is to raise tons of canned foods for those in need. We ask you to support this year's Food to Families campaign and help make these tough times a little easier for families in our community.
Colonel North, I've been around you enough now over these last few weeks to know that whenever you're asked about your political future and do you have any ambitions, you invoke your father's name and said, Dad said, never say never, right?
He did indeed.
Beyond that, however, is it even a possibility that Ollie North would run, let's say, for the Senate from Virginia?
I think anything's possible, Ted. I believe that the most important thing I can do now is to try and help my family put our life back together, get back on our feet, and hopefully get our children a little bit older before I would realistically consider something like that.
But family aside for a moment, if the family says okay, is it something, is there a fire burning in your belly on that one?
My best friend and I would have to have a lot of long talks about it before I could talk her into thinking that's a good idea.
Colonel North, thanks very much. You've got a long, grueling book tour ahead of you and a whole lot of interviews, I suspect, like this one. But it was gracious of you to come here first, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted.
That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been a Nightline exclusive. If you wish a video cassette version of tonight's program, the cost is $14.98, plus $3.95 shipping and handling. If you wish a printed transcript, please send $4 to 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
America's watching ABC.
Furniture, when it's got to be good. When it's got to be wood, it's got to be Naked Furniture. Our specialty is fine wood furniture for the way you live, for the way you work, Furniture just for you, custom finished by us. And with all this quality, all this style, we didn't have to make it affordable. But we did. Naked Furniture, real wood, affordably priced.
Save 20 to 40% on all dining rooms now at Naked Furniture on Nolensville Road.